Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Todd, let's jump right on. Chuck Peruto, you're with us?
I'm here.
So first, I want to introduce you to the audience. We're lucky enough, and I owe you, Mr. Peruto, a huge debt of gratitude or gratitude of debt, whatever it is, for taking your time. You're at the center of the Meek Mills case, or Meek Mill case, and I believe you represent the attorney, Judge Brinkly. Maybe you can start off, and if I'm from Philadelphia, so I know, as Todd is, so we know the Peruto name is, I'm going to say, the most famous legal name in Philadelphia, probably for the past 50, 60 years. I remember as a kid hearing about your father and you guys have been at the center of every legal battle, I think, in Philadelphia, but on the criminal side. It's unbelievable to have you here. But maybe just start out by telling us a little bit about, from your perspective, the Meek Mill case, and then we'll just jump in and asking you questions.
All right. Well, first of all, there's two facets to the Meek Mill case. One is where the judge feels very strongly that he violated his probation several times, and she finally put him in jail. The propaganda that you see on that, because of Meek Mill's machine of disseminating false information, has been excellent for Meek. My hat is off to them because they've done such a tremendous job in getting this fan base behind Meek Mill miscalculated and misjudged because they don't know all the violation hearings he's had and what he's done, and he's been made a martyr. And then the second facet is this business about how corrupt cops arrested him in the first place. That's different. The first facet, the judge feels very strongly that he deserved to go to jail because for violating probation. The second facet, we have yet to see the evidence they're going to produce to see if he was wrongfully convicted in the first place. That is something that she doesn't have strong feelings about.
First, let me back up. Isn't it unusual that a judge hires a criminal defense attorney? You're an attorney, but I think you focus on criminal defense work to
I do
represent her.
I think that it basically came down to her hiring me because I've appeared before her so many times. I've had jury trials with her. I made her laugh during those jury trials. I won her over. So I think that I'm the kind of lawyer that she wants to speak for her, and she needs someone to speak for her because she's barred under the rules to speak and to say the things that she wants to say.
How common is it, and I don't know, maybe it is, that judges in high-profile cases hire attorneys to speak for them? Is that...
I've been fortunate enough, this is my fourth time, but there's been years in between each one. It is not common, but it's not my first time.
So Judge Ito should have called you.
So you're a Philly boy like us. Jack and I both are very familiar with down the shore, as we say it up there. One of your first jobs, I think, was washing boats at Captain Andy's, which we both know in Margate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's take a little stroll down memory lane and talk about that, a little summer at the shore action before we get into the case and the nitty gritty.
I bagged bait worms and cleaned boats at Captain Andy's, which is still there. And I was a short order cook. Actually, I was promoted to short order cook after I was a dishwasher at the Margate Cabana.
Oh wow!
And then I graduated to cement laborer and cleaned cement forms. So I was a big shot then.
Got it. And your first case was what? The Whitman Sniper, or is that what it was
Whitman
called?
Sniper is one of the first big ones, but the one that really catapulted me to literally international fame was Joey Coyle. Joey Coyle was the guy that found $1.2 million in the middle of the street in unmarked $100 bills and got away with it. Well, for a little while anyway.
Gotcha. So so the judge, how does this play out? It starts to get, the PR machine goes wild, and the judge reaches out to you and say, will you represent me in this?
Well, she called me up and said that they're putting all of this stuff out on the media that I did this and I did that, meaning the judge did these things. And I said, I have to tell you, Judge, I saw it too. She says, well, I'm barred from talking. You did a good job, and I don't want to mention that judge's name. So could I hire you? And the rest is history. I speak for her now.
So you're almost acting as her PR agent rather than an attorney, I guess.
Well, No, because a PR agent puts spin on it. I just tell it like it is. I just give the facts. I don't try to influence the judge or the audience. I just try to clarify the truth.
Is it unusual for you, because you're usually on the, I think, on the other side representing um, the defendant? How
That's
unusual?
true. I'm usually representing the defendant, but I can tell you this. I wouldn't take a case and have the same approach that they take by calling the judge names and calling her a criminal and saying she does this and does that, none of which is true. So obviously, it's good that they want Judge Brinkley to recuse herself or to disqualify herself because she's a tough judge. And as a defendant, you don't want a tough judge. But you can't create your own problem and then say, hey, we got a problem. They say that she can't be fair because we've called her a bunch of names. Well, you're not going to win that way.
So is the essence of, let's deal with the parole violations, and I'm not an expert at it at all. I, read very little. I saw I think it was a 48 hours piece, which you look very nice in, and so I have a little bit of information. But is the heart of the parole issue that he had what they call technical violations?
Yes, a technical violation is anything that's not a direct violation. A direct violation is when you get convicted of a new case
Gotcha.
while on probation.
S-
A technical violation would be such things that he did of substituting his urine for a friend's urine so that it wouldn't come up dirty, uh, leaving the state and then calling in for permission when he's already away. Uh, it's just a host of things. Turning up hot, giving hot urines, getting arrested 3 different times for new crimes, and then not reporting it because you have a duty to report it. He had a host of problems.
Do you think, forget about Meek Mill for a second, do you think
Mm-hmm.
our criminal justice system needs major reform? Because to be candid with you, it seems to me that we're just over criminalizing everyone. I know the African American community thinks it's about them, the white collar community thinks it's about them, but it just seems that we're just putting people in jail for maybe things they did bad, but not violent crimes. And it just seems to me that maybe somebody like Meek or other people, they should be penalized for not following the rules. But to send someone to jail for 4 years, and it just would, I kind of feel we're tearing apart the fabric of our society and families, and it's a whole
Well,
culture.
let's analyze it. Number one, I do think that some reforms are needed. I don't think the Meek Mill case is the poster child for getting attention for that. Now, here's what I mean. Here's what I mean. What do you do when instead of giving somebody jail, which she should have done in the first place, to be honest with you, uh, most judges will give you 3 years in prison for carrying a gun and protecting the drugs, even if you don't point it at the gun. If you carry a gun on the streets and you're selling drugs, you can get 3 years just for that. But this judge gives you a break the first time and says, I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to give you probation. Here's what you got to do. And then you don't do those things. What is a judge supposed to do? When she says stay drug free and you test positive for opiates, and then you come in the next time and you switch your urine, it's not your DNA, and it's easy for these guys to get caught for these things. What do you do? Just say, I don't want to send you back to jail because the whole country's in an uproar about our jails? Or what do you do when you say, I don't want you going to California without permission, and then calling from California saying, hey, can I go to California? These things, there has to be some ramification, some punishment for violating the trust. So maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation had the judge given him the 3 years in the first place.
Right. I think a lot of people, at least the most vociferous outcry has more to do with, I guess, the initial arrest and whether or not he was brutalized during that arrest.
With the fact that he's famous and privileged. Let me tell you, this is not the poster child for these cases. This is somebody who's put millions of dollars into this propaganda that the judge is no good, that he didn't do anything, etc. Other people have suffered at the hands of this criminal justice system much more than Meek Mill.
Right.
But he is being singled out because he is affluent and privileged. He is not the poster child for the downtrodden and underprivileged.
No, but sometimes it takes someone with more notoriety or fame to sort of shine a light in the direction of those who don't get, I guess the light of day in their plight. He is famous, and maybe he wasn't abused the way some others are, but if he uses this, stage that he's on a national level, and by the way, to the viewers who don't know the Meek Mill case, I mean, it's sort of national now, but he's a rapper from Philadelphia, as we all are, and he was incarcerated in 2008. But, this case has been going on more or less for 10 years in various forms. First, he was in prison, then he got out and went in prison again for probation violation. I think it's been 4 times. I may be wrong. You can correct me, Chuck, if I am wrong. But, I'm not here to say who was right and who was wrong. But Jack and I both believe this, and I'm sure you do too, Chuck. Our criminal justice system has failed on certain levels. We have an incarceration rate that blows away the rest of the world, especially for certain communities, especially the African-American community. And we use it, more as temporary housing for certain people than really what it's supposed to be for. And I don't know that this case is representative of what all the misgoings are in that criminal justice, but he is using this as a platform maybe to shine a light on that.
Listen, there is no system that is perfect. Our system has a lot of flaws, and it does need to be fixed. But what happened in this case doesn't need to be fixed. The only way this case would be different is if we voted for more lenient judges, because Judge Brinkly is one of the tough judges. She's one of the judges that most probationers don't violate because their lawyer tells them, hey, listen, don't mess with this judge. She's also a judge who terminates probation early if you do what you're supposed to do. If she gives you 2 years probation, she'll terminate you in 6 months because you did follow all the rules. Or if you get a 10-year probation, she'll terminate you in 3 years because it was a more serious crime. So she's not an unfair judge. She's a tough judge. She's no nonsense in her courtroom. There are many more judges who give more severe sentences, and they haven't been talked about. Obviously, if he had one of those, we'd really be up in arms.
In this case, what was his probation? Because I think 48 hours, so it was like 8 years or something of that nature.
Well, because it involved a gun, and a gun is the thing in Philadelphia that gets everybody up in arms and scared. Any crime that deals with a gun is going to be more severe. Selling drugs, strangling your girlfriend, raping. Honest to God, as much as there'll be a public outcry, that doesn't scare people like guns do, because guns kill people. They kill innocent people with stray bullets, etc. So the sentencing guidelines are high for guns. The other crimes that I just mentioned are on a case-by-case basis, whether it was a boyfriend and girlfriend, was there provocation from the victim, all that stuff that we normally talk about. So, but guns, they scare people. So you're going to get a more severe sentence for guns to begin with. Couple that with protecting a drug crime, coupled that with an accusation that you pointed it at the Philadelphia police. That gets the police up in arms, and they are very much up in arms of the publicity that Meek Mill is receiving in this case, because they believe that they are now the victims, and they have been crucified because their voice has been squashed. And I'm not their spokesman either. I'm just saying there's 10 different angles to this case. One angle that it isn't is a judge who threw him in jail for no reason. And that's the propaganda that we have.
One of the things in the media, which I don't know if it's true or not, maybe you can tell us, is that the judge sentenced him to some, I'm going to say a homeless shelter, some kind of community service, and the judge actually went there to see if he was doing whatever he was doing. Is that true?
That's very true, but it's not uncommon. And she's not the only judge that does that. She rides probationers, but she also rewards them if they're doing what. If she went there that day and he was doing what he was supposed to do, oh, you have no idea how much better off he would be if he was simply doing what he was supposed to do and didn't have his little buddies just to write up a report to tell the judge he was doing what he was supposed to do. He would be in great shape. We don't look at it from that perspective. He does check on her probationers.
So she's gone, if he was just Joe Schmo, some guy from the Northeast or Fishtown or some other section in Philadelphia who wasn't famous, she's gone and checked them while they're doing
You know,
their.
it's funny. You know, it's funny. I was smiling because I wanted to talk to the judge the other day to update her on what's been happening. So I waited in her courtroom and I was listening to this case that was being argued. And it was a Joe Schmo. And the judge did go check on him. And it didn't surprise that defense lawyer at all because these are things he does. Judge Scott DeClaudio does the same thing. She's not the only judge that does these, and it's not as uncommon as the propaganda machine would have you believe.
Right. One of the complaints that Meek had in the interview they had, I guess, after the last Sixers game, which was on like 60 Minutes or something, was that he was violating parole by going across one of the bridges into New Jersey to visit a family member, maybe a child. What's your feeling about that? Close proximity. I mean, we all know that the New Jersey suburbs.
I think that Meek was foolish to say that on television because it's not true, and the judge could be watching. And I think that it's kind of silly for him to exaggerate because facts are facts, fiction is fiction. He didn't get violated for going across the bridge into Camden to see his kid. That's not a fact. That was complete poppycock made up.
Wow.
One again, I don't mean to keep pressing you on this, but there was also stories that when I may be using the wrong word, that he was basically, they should have let him out of jail. She refused to, and she scheduled a hearing for like June or something like that.
Well, what happened is this: it's I would say bail on a PCRA is given in well less than 1% of the time. In this particular case, we have a new district attorney in Philadelphia, a very progressive guy, Larry Krasner, who actually joined with Meek Mill's lawyer, went to the Supreme Court and said, hey, we need three things, justices. We need one, we need bail. And we agree with the defense, that is the district attorney and the defendant together. We agree that he should get bail. The second thing we want is for this Supreme Court to order Judge Brinkly disqualified from hearing this case any further because she's prejudiced. And they supplied in a brief all of their reasons why they believe that the Supreme Court should have knocked her off the case. And it was denied. And their last request was to have the case thrown out because of a tainted police officer 10 years ago. Denied. They said that has to be explored. We have to have a hearing on it. So I come back after this is all over, and the press is reporting that Judge Brinkly was rebuked by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, or Judge Brinkly was smacked down by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. No, she wasn't. The only thing they got was bail. The case is still pending, and the only reason they got bail is because both sides agreed that he's not a flight risk, and they put several conditions on him. They didn't just let him out. He has very onerous conditions on him right now. But they did not side with both of them when they said she's tainted and she's prejudiced. They said there's no evidence of that whatsoever, and they sent it back to Judge Brinkly. So that's not being rebuked or slapped down or anything of the sort.
So that'll be decided in the beginning of June hearing, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's mid-June. The defense, now you have to understand something. The defense is required under the PCRA rules to come in with what we call competent evidence to demonstrate that his first trial was tainted by a lying police officer. Well, if they come in with that evidence and demonstrate that to the court, I'm telling you right now, Judge Brinkly will be the first judge to throw this case 100 yards away. But I don't believe he can do that because the reports in Philadelphia are mixed on whether or not Officer Graham was tainted, was a liar. There's several reports on cops that they stole money routinely, etc. But what they had on, I think it was Dateline NBC, they had a former police officer who testified against several dirty cops, who testified many times that he gave envelopes, that they stole money, that they stole drugs. He did not mention Officer Graham as one of those cops. What he said about Graham was that he got Meek Mill's head and rammed it into the door after confiscating these things from him. That doesn't make you incredible. That doesn't mean you're a liar. That means you're violent. That's a different issue.
Got it.
Well, I guess we'll find out mid-June. So let me
Yep.
ask you, as a criminal defense lawyer, what changes do you think would help the criminal justice system? Forget about the Meek Mill case,
Okay.
just in general, because I know it's talked about now in Philadelphia and on a national scope. So let's spend a minute or two. If you could just tick off a couple changes which you think would make the system more fair.
I think to really come up with some good proposals, you have to look towards our DA and the platform that he ran for district attorney on, because many of the ideas that he has are excellent, and he is implementing them. He's not just running on that campaign and then hiding from it. One is cash bail. If you can't afford to pay your bail, you sit and take up a jail spot. He's very concerned about what it costs to incarcerate a defendant each day, and it's astronomical. The public would say, "What? Let him go." It's crazy. The non-violent offenses that we have people that are behind bars for, and even in the cases of homicides, where it's a heat of passion, where the guy had a law-abiding life for 35 years and then lost it because somebody's sleeping with his wife or his girlfriend or something like that, and there's no real threat that he's ever going to do this again. This district attorney is reasonable, but the problem is it takes people using reason to fix the system, because it's not done by computer, it's done by people. So it's a difficult thing to fix, because what you have to do is change the mindset of the people, and Larry Krasner is doing an excellent job with that on that. And I call a spade a spade. If they're right, they're right. If they're wrong, they're wrong. He's right on a lot of.
Well, hopefully one of the things that comes out of this is the exposure to the criminal justice system that I think Meek is working on, and maybe it'll start to change things. I know you got to go, but before I wrap up, on the way here, I was speaking to a friend of mine who happens to be an attorney in Philadelphia, and he said the rap on Peruto is not only do you take the big famous cases, but you're an advocate for the common man. And he said he most respects that about you. Maybe tell us just a little bit about your practice and who would come to you.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I don't have beautiful clients like Sun Oil Company and J. Paul Getty and Rockefeller. I don't get $1 million fees. I work every day, and I work every day long hours, because I'm getting $2,000 here, $3,000 there, $1,000 here, and I'm trying to make everybody happy. And I do represent a lot of downtrodden people who need a voice, because the only thing that stands between the government, you, and a jail cell is your defense lawyer. You need that defense lawyer, because he's the only one that's not on the government payroll, and he's not going to take orders from the government, because they can kiss my. Am I allowed to say it?
Yeah,
Sure.
go for it.
They can kiss my ass, and I've told them that many times. The first district attorney we've had in Philadelphia that I've had any respect for in a long time is this district attorney, because I might not agree with him on everything, but by golly, this guy's good. He's really, really dedicated. He's not in this to run for a higher office, or come up with a famous case and give somebody 1,000,000 years and therefore hooray for me. Nah, he's really looking at these things and really trying to fix things and trying to help people. And I think that the more Larry Krasners we have, the better off we're going to be.
Right. What's the Philadelphia case, I guess, in your lifetime, whether you were part of it or not, that either holds the biggest spot in your mind, or that means the most to you?
Well, I think the most famous case in Philadelphia history is the case The Silence of the Lambs is based off, and that's Gary Heidnik.
Right.
Gary Heidnik was accused of having 6 women chained in his basement while he was an ordained minister, and had $1 million in the stock market, drove around in a Rolls Royce, and was torturing these girls at night in a row home in North Philadelphia. It was astonishing. It was crazy. He had one of the victims' head in a vat of boiling water on the stove when he was arrested. The case was horrifying, and it's 30 years ago, and I was his lawyer.
Right. Now, and a lot of people ask you how you could possibly bring yourself to represent someone like that, and what is your answer to that?
Well, I can tell you that the answer that I gave for that very question 30 years ago is one that I regret my buddies, my high school and college buddies, they got a lot of yucks out of it. They thought it was funny, but the average citizen didn't think it was funny when the cameras are on me and they say, "Why would you take a case like that? Why? How could you possibly defend a guy like that?" And my answer was, "I can give you 100,000 reasons." And the next day, it was reported in the Philadelphia Daily News that I got $100,000 fee.
Right.
So it was funny at the time, but not to everybody. I can tell you that.
I'm sure.
Well,
I have some like rapid fire,
Go
just
for
fun
it.
questions
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Sure.
First of all, where does someone like you power lunch in Philadelphia? Where's your favorite spot?
I'm going to tell you the truth because this is an opportunity to give one of my friends a plug. I haven't taken a lunch in 20 years. I don't have time for lunch. I am always like running from courtroom to courtroom, from county to county. I don't have time for lunch. Because
Favorite cheesesteak? Do you got a favorite cheesesteak in Philly?
If I have a cheesesteak twice a year, it's a lot. My favorite cheesesteak in Philly is hands down Geno's.
Favorite restaurant?
La Buca.
And who's going to win
7-Eleven
tonight and by how much? Sixers game. Where are you watching it?
Tonight I got to watch it at home. It's back in Boston, but I've gone to the last couple games, and the funny thing is, I was sitting next to Michael Rubin, who's behind Meek Mill.
Yeah.
And when I say next to him, I don't mean near him. I mean next to him. When he's the one behind Meek Mill, and he knows I'm representing the judge, and we got a good laugh out of it because we're both pros.
Great.
Still go to Margate?
Avalon, right?
I sold my house in Margate. Now I go to Avalon because it seems like the party moved to Avalon. Margate's is a real sophisticated family town now.
Got it.
Well, recently I was single, so I went to Avalon, and that's where I met the girl I'm dating now.
Gotcha. So now you're a taken man. So
I got engaged last weekend.
Congrats.
congratulations.
That's
That was
awesome.
the first degree.
That's exciting. Well, it should be only good times for you and your new wife ahead of you, the future Mrs. Peruto. I really appreciate you coming on. And I have to tell all the citizens of Philadelphia, if you need a criminal defense lawyer, sounds like you're the guy to look up. And
Amazing.
we have tremendous respect for you. And maybe after the next hearing, we'll have you on again. Love to figure out the outcome of this. Thank you very much. Everyone else, stay tuned. We will be back in a minute with Amy talking about chasing Hillary and a lot of juicy details of the Hillary Clinton campaign. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll be back in 1 minute.